We have a great speaker today, which I'm really excited to introduce. His name is Matthew Dreisbach, and he obtained a BS in computer engineering in 2018 and an MS in EECS with a focus in robotics in 2020. He served as the lead programmer for robotic pedestrian avoidance systems in cars, which is fascinating, and also is acting as inaugural staff of Mcity, which is one of the pretty amazing resources that the University of Michigan has. So he participated in several internships and co-ops, including Denso, Civil Maps, Functional Fluidics, and Toyota. So please join me in welcoming our speaker, and then we'll stick around and do a Q&A at the end. Matthew Dreisbach, everyone. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Am I coming across on the mic for people online? All right, sweet. Yeah, hi. My name is Matt Dreisbach. I agreed to speak at this before I looked at the list of previous speakers. And there were a lot of professors and people from NASA, so I'm going to be less impressive today. But I hope I hope I can relate to you a little bit more. I was actually an undergrad just about 5 years ago, so I'm still kind of in that sphere. And I'm hoping today that I can use that to my advantage. And I'm going to talk specifically about decisions that I made in undergrad and how those influenced my path to a career in robotics. And hopefully it's relevant. Okay, so who am I? Like I said, I was an undergrad here. I also got my master's here in ECE robotics. I graduated in 2020, right before the pandemic and before this cool building was open. Now I work as a software engineer at Woven by Toyota here at the Ann Arbor office, which is really close. So this is very convenient for me. But the Ann Arbor office here, it's focused primarily on automated driving. And previously this office was in Toyota Research Institute, TRI, under Ryan Eustace, who was actually a previous speaker here, and I think is still a UMich professor. So that's a neat connection. Also, recently TRI, most of TRI's self-driving work was acquired by Woven, whose CEO until recently was James Kuffner, who you might know as he was the guy who wrote or co-wrote the RRT paper. If you've taken any motion plating course, actually if you take Chad's motion plating course, he's a wonderful by RRT. You can learn all about it. Anyway, so it's a deep robotics company, and it's fun to be a part of. But specifically, I work on the Geo team at Woven, which was previously the automated mapping platform. And there's not actually a lot that's been publicly released about what my team does. So I'm gonna have to speak in broad and specific terms. So here we go. Toyota, largest automaker in the world. New Toyota vehicles have cameras and sensors that upload anonymized data about their environment. And we take that data and then we build a large offline SLAM optimization to turn it into a map that our self-driving team can use. So does that kind of make sense? Like a crowdsourced map that we build a road out of. This photo, this is the only photo that PR has released from our team. This is the before picture. So we were all disappointed that they showed before our optimization happens instead of after. But I guess they found it looked cooler. Anyways, I can talk, that's all I can say about my job, but I can talk about my team, which is really fantastic. There's 6 people on my team. I am the only one without a PhD. I get to make a real impact on my team, which is great. I get to use my degree, which is wild how often I use my degree. And I'm learning new things every day, which is a lot of fun. And I promised Kyle that I would mention I use a lot of linear algebra in my work. And I really regret choosing the easiest professor to take linear algebra because that has come back to bite me. So please dig in deep on linear. What? All right. Anyways. Yeah, let's keep going. This presentation, not about what I do now, it's about the choices that I made in undergrad to get me to here. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk through my story in undergrad and tie it into key learnings. So there are 4: choose a focus early, just show up, keep saying yes, and build strong teams. Okay, choosing a focus early, that can give you a big leg up. All of you have chosen the robotics undergrad degree. Is that true? Everybody? Cool. That means you've already started to specialize, so great job. You've started on that path. I had very little direction comparatively when I started undergrad in 2014 here. I chose to focus on self-driving, and I ended up on that focus because I just worked with what I had, which was that Michigan had strong ties to the auto industry. I picked the most interesting thing that I could see in the auto industry, which was self-driving, which is to say I just followed the hype. And it seems like the hype right now is AI, so I fed this slide into OpenAI's DALL-E and generated some images. I think I did okay. They're figured it out. Okay, so here's a tip. I throw them in green throughout the presentation. You can specialize without any experience. So as an example, when you're talking with a recruiter at a career fair, if you just provide a focus, that can give you a head start. So that's how I got my first internship in industry. I remember I told the recruiter that I was just interested in their, at that time, connected vehicle to infrastructure tech. And then months later, I was sweating about an internship, and the recruiter called me back, and they said, we remember that you were interested in our V2X division, and we have an internship. So that works. I didn't have any experience in that, but I provided a focus, and that helped me along the way. Side note here, V2X is dead. All the code that I wrote that summer has been shelved, and I would not recommend specializing in that. But I did learn a lot, and specifically about automotive embedded C code, which eventually landed me a GSI role and paid for my grad school. So sometimes the path isn't linear, to finish it out. Anyways, that's not how I got my start. I got my start when I became the very first employee at Mcity, which leads into my next section, which is just show up. So a lot of people, I think, dispense this advice that just showing up is 90% of success. But in this section, I'm going to try to show some concrete examples of how I took that to the extreme, and it worked really well. So anyways, I was a freshman at the time, and I remember I was hearing murmurs about this new test track that was going in. Actually, I think I can almost see it from here, which is neat. Anyways, at that time, it was just concrete. I mean, they barely laid down anything, and there were just a couple articles in the Daily that I had read about it. And I sent an email to Umtree, who was overseeing the project at the time, and you can see it on the map here. And I was a freshman at the time. I went to the winter career fair. Anybody go to the winter career fair as a freshman? Show of hands. Anybody? Good. Nice job. Nice job. How did it go? Yeah. Did it go great?
When I was older.
Yeah, same thing. Okay. So I absolutely struck out. I had no luck. But I had my suit on and my resume, and I got on a bus, and I just went to Umtree. I just showed up, and I went inside, and I handed my resume to the first person that I saw, and I told them that I wanted to work at Mcity. And somehow that worked. I got an interview, I got hired, I became the first person employed directly to the track. And actually years later, Carrie Morton, who became the track director at Mcity, she told me that many people had reached out via email, but I was the only person to show up, and they took pity on me and made the position. So yeah, anyways, that's how I broke into the industry. And it happened my freshman year. Okay, some lessons from this. Be creative. So not every opportunity is like a traditional internship that you land at the career fair. Maybe the job doesn't exist yet, and somebody, maybe you can show up and just ask for it. It can work. Keep putting your face out there. So keep going to career fairs, even as a freshman and a sophomore. If you get used to that rejection and kind of learn to be cool with it, it's also fun to notice how people change, as you have more experience and they're suddenly more interested in you. So just, keep showing up. And sometimes you don't have to do anything. Just repetitively having your face in a room is enough. That's how I got this speaking gig, actually. I just kept showing up to Chad's lab meeting, and then eventually Chad thought, yeah, he's probably qualified. The final point here, you have nothing to lose. When you don't have any qualifications, you could turn that into a feature. When I handed my resume over at Umtree, I handed it over and I told them that I could ride my bike in front of cars if they needed me to do that. And so I didn't have any experience, but I had a bike and I leveraged that. And they never asked me to do that. Let's see, what is this here? Oh yeah. This is maybe a little hard to remember, but in 2014 or 2015, when I was a freshman, there was a lot of hype about Mcity. In fact, Carrie Morton told me that there were more articles written that year about Mcity than any other non-sports related thing that the university did. It was kind of wild. So there was a New York Times article, Wired, Washington Post. They just kept writing about it. You can see this circle here, this red circle. That's not when I joined. That's after I joined. So maybe some advice here: try to get in before the hype hits. Look for things that are just starting up. Oh man, the freshmen are looking really young.
We're a robotics team coming.
Oh, super cool.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, so there you go. I followed the hype. That was the lesson there. Okay, this is an unrelated tip. If you're gonna take on a personal project, make sure that it's relevant to your career. So I had heard that a personal project was a good idea. I think people have dispensed this advice, and I decided to make an app that was a compass to the nearest Taco Bell. This is fun to talk about at parties. Recruiters, they would smile when they saw it on my resume, but it has never helped me get a job. Not once. It is not relevant to my career, and I wouldn't recommend it. Actually, here's a concrete example. I put Taco Compass on my bio for this speaking role, and it was so unprofessional that they removed it from my bio when they listed me online for this role. So this personal project was not relevant and ultimately a failure. Okay, keep saying yes. That's my next section. I started at Mcity while I was still taking classes my freshman year. The first few months were not exciting. My job was to clean dirt off of street signs. So the county would deliver bent, faded street signs that had stickers, to fool the self-driving cars that are in this test track. It was my job to clean them, hang them, and I did that for months. But I was determined to work all the hours that they offered me, and then eventually that paid off. So this robot's name was Sebastian. He was a system to test pedestrian avoidance systems in cars. A group of mechanical engineers had built them for their senior capstone, but issues in the code prevented him from walking. And that summer, I worked with two incredible mechanical engineers who were upperclassmen at the time. That's Abby Crane, a mechanical engineer from UMich, and Val Pang, a mechanical engineer from MIT. So this was a big upgrade from cleaning signs. Let's talk more about the robot. From a mechanical perspective, Sebastian arrived a pretty well-engineered robot. From a robotics perception and control, he was very simple. There were two heavy, strong locking motors in each foot and one sensor total. There was an encoder in the hips that measured the delta in leg separation. And the goal that summer was to get him walking by the time that Mcity opened. So let's watch some videos. There's a good robotics presentation always has fun videos of robots. For the first month that we worked on this project, we actually didn't get anywhere. The optical encoder, it had a wire harness that went to our microcontroller, and inside that wire harness, we crossed a cable. So that took us a full month to debug. So we were getting really odd values out of our encoder. But once we got that figured out, we started walking, and then we started walking faster. And then we'll look at this last video where we start to get some real speed. Yeah, and he's doing all right. That's Val Peng on the right. And you'll see we, of course, have very little sensor input here. He's a basic robot that's ready to be hit by a car. So there's not a lot of smart features. You'll see him try to get through this doorway here. And we literally pick him up and change his direction to tell him satisfied. Let's keep going. Here we go, but eventually it worked. You'll notice here we're in the snow. It did not take us this long. We met the deadline in the summer, and when Mcity opened, the robot was walking. He is more of a roller skater by the end of it, but we did what we set out to do, and we noticed we didn't have any videos of him, so we came back and we took this one. All right, we did it. We got Sebastian working by the time Mcity opened. Show of hands, who has seen this photo before? Yep, okay, this photo was the Kane default background, and if you look close, okay, that photo, which you see all around the university, that's me and Abby and Sebastian. That's the guy in the high-vis jacket is our robot. So every time I see that on the screens, I get a little excited about it. Anyways, I remember feeling very unqualified that summer. I had finished my freshman year. My only code knowledge was from Engineering 101. Abby and Val were both upperclassmen, but they were willing to listen to my input. And in retrospect, I think that made a really formative impact on my own confidence as an engineer. And I ended up making a really big impact on Sebastian's code base that summer. And it was really thanks to Abby and Val's trust that I was able to do that. So thanks to that. And that leads me to my next point, which is about building strong teams. So networking, incredibly important, but I think in undergrad, I really didn't understand what it was. I think I went in with the impression that networking looked like a job fair where you're all in like suits and you're shaking hands. But I've come to realize that networking really happens at about 2 a.m. in the basement of the Ugly. Okay, so if you're working on a project with a person and it's 2 a.m. and you're in the basement of the Ugly, you are networking, okay? Right? Networking is just, it's finding people who you want to work together with, work on a team. This university will give you a chance to work on some fantastic teams. I don't think there's a specific thing to look for to identify a great team, but when you're on one, you can really tell. As you join teams for classes or student teams, take some time after you leave the team and ask yourself, you know, was this a good team? How did I know? What did it make me feel like? I think that recognizing a good team from a bad team, especially in a corporate environment, it can really make the difference between a joyful job and a not so joyful job. You know, just being able to say, that's a team that I want to be a part of, and I'm headed towards that. I think it's really important. And then finally, the people that you work with here will go on to do really amazing things. So try to keep in touch. Case in point, this is Val, who you saw earlier in the video. She went on to become one of the founding members at an ag tech startup north of San Francisco, FYTO. I don't know if they're hiring. Don't tell her that I said they are. You can maybe reach out. But I have a lot of examples like this. There's a lot of people that I met here and have gone on to do really incredible things, and you will too. It'll just come with time. All right, do you still use Piazza? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. This will make sense. This is a tip. Sometimes when I didn't know anybody in a course, Piazza will let you sort by who contributed most. Yeah, there's a tab for that, okay? So if I didn't know anybody in a course and I had to build a student team at the end of the course, okay? You can use this. I would just send an email to everybody on that list, like just go down the ranking. And it worked out one time. Pretty well. Okay, second point, inevitably you're gonna be on a team where it feels like one person is doing all the work. One way I have gotten around that is by asking just like, where are you? And I'm bringing pizza. So, and then I show up with a box of pizza to this person who's doing it on their own. Food, always a good way to bridge a gap with somebody and try to make a connection if that's what you're trying to do. And then the last thing, which is probably the most important, never let somebody's proficiency in English be a barrier to joining their team. This is a lesson best learned early. Robotics is a very international field in school and industry, and the best teams that I have been a part of have always included non-native English speakers. So this is important, and you should learn that early. Often these cross-cultural friendships have been really meaningful to me. And since then, I've had just the absolute honor of visiting these friends in their home country. So there's me and Q Kong, who I met in the dorms. This is me visiting him at home in Vietnam. Q, now a software engineer at Google. The second one, that's Christian. He was my 373 partner. Do you guys have to take EECS 373?
No.
Okay, that's a great course. Anyways, he was an exchange student when we met. This is me visiting him at home in Madrid. He went on to go to grad school at Georgia Tech. And then finally, that's me and Ziqi Guo in his hometown of Beijing. We were in Tech Lab together. So let's talk about Tech Lab. Okay, who's heard of Tech Lab? Anybody? Okay, 1, 2, 3, maybe. Okay, it's still a big program here at UMich, which connects autonomous vehicle startups with students and then provides those startups with access to Mcity. The first cohort of Tech Lab was very different from what it is today. There were 4 students total, and it was really unstructured and a lot of fun. Maybe the first thing, here's how I got that job. Here's how I got involved in Tech Lab. And I'll quote my boss at Mcity directly, which was, all right, here's the quote. I was the only student with a physical key to the padlock on the gate at Mcity, so I was therefore required to take the course. Okay, so this is before that we had like a key card entry, you could do it. So I had that physical key, and I think that the lesson here is I didn't get that job because I was qualified. I got it by leveraging my existing position, which is how a lot of career advancement works, right? You don't have to be the most qualified person in the room. Sometimes you just have to have what they need at that moment. So, I don't know, maybe learn something. Okay, and then just to tie it up, we worked with a company called ZenDrive. This was a great job. At night, 3 days a week, we would go to Mcity after it was done being used by like companies. And we would take, this was our job, we would take sharp turns and soft turns in a Honda Civic. And we would record accelerometer data on a bunch of smartphones in the backseat. And then we wrote a random forest classifier that would detect hard turns from soft turns for ZenDrive that eventually went into production, which is neat. At the end of the semester, they flew us all out to their San Francisco office, which was cool. I ended up learning a lot about startup culture. I learned a lot about machine learning, and I also learned how to corner really well in a Honda Civic. All right, this is unrelated tip. While we're talking about startups, this is a strategy that I found worked well for me when I was trying to find opportunities at specifically robotics startups. So here's the strategy. Choose a startup you're interested in. In this case, I'm looking at Pickle Robot. Pickle Robot, it's got a funny name. It's a cool, weird startup that's building robots that empty, I think, I don't know, they move packages. What do you do? So you find a startup that you're interested in, you check which firms have invested in it. So I work for Toyota, so I noticed that on Crunchbase, Toyota Ventures, that's a VC capital firm that's invested in Pickle Robot, right? So then you can go to that investor's website, like Toyota Ventures, and there's bunches of these, and they will have a thing at the top that says portfolio. And if you click that on their website, they'll list similar companies because these firms, they invest in kind of similar companies. So anyways, then just look up these companies and send them an email. I found that when I did this, the first response is usually, how did you find us? They're very confused about it. And that's because a lot of startups are really geographically located. So May Mobility is a startup started by a professor here at Michigan. A lot of their talent pool comes right from U of M, right? So if you want to break out of that, I think Pickle Robot is in Massachusetts, right? You can use these sort of techniques and you can just ask them. And if you go on a startup's careers page and you don't see an intern listed, please email them. It's usually like 5 people, that are at this startup. They might be open to it, and you can learn a lot there. And I've gotten job offers from that process, so go for it. Oh, that's it. Okay, those were the 4 themes to making undergrad count. To reiterate, choose a focus early, just show up, keep saying yes, and build strong teams. This presentation was focused on the key moments in my undergrad, but there were obviously a lot of other decisions that got me to my current career. So I'll do just a quick summary. The last 2 years of undergrad, I interned on the Toyota lane keeping team. I became a GSI for EECS 461, and I finished my master's here at UMich. And then after that, I worked on Lexus Teammate, which is kind of the Lexus equivalent to the Tesla Autopilot. Lexus is owned by Toyota. And then I transitioned on to AMP at Toyota Research Institute, which became Geo at Woven. And that's it. That's the whole presentation.